trying to. That way. Should be that way. Flip. You go to flip it. You go to flip it and everything will be upside down, just like how the world is anyway. So, I feel like having a bath. You know, so that's what I was gonna do. Have a bath. I wanna look over that way. That's where my eye feels like I wanna look towards. Instead it's over this way. I need something that's not like an Android, you know. See, I keep looking that way. Like I'm looking off yonder, like the hillscape or something. I don't take my boots off ever, and I don't take my socks off ever. So I have access to my foot down here. I have a foot down here. That's part of it right there. It's part of my foot. I keep treating them with tea tree oil, the ones that have that stuff that you don't want to mention to other people. Foot over here. There's a foot. I got a steps daily and all that. There's a foot. Yeah, there's a foot. It's got this toe stuff on it. I like to treat it with tea tree oil all the time. I tried lining up my insurance where I could get like some topical stuff to put on it and treat it, but it never worked out. People like whatever I'm supposed to be, whoever I am, those sorts, they make it really hard to get help with topical foot fungus ointments. So I just soak it in tea tree oil all the time. It doesn't really help reset, you know, foot fungus or anything, but it might keep it, you know, from dispatching or dispersing, or you know, getting terrible. It feels real good to itch my toes right now though. Maybe I shouldn't wear boots and socks every moment that basically I'm not sleeping or, you know, bathing. But I felt like relaxing, so I decided the bath might be a good idea. So that water is as hot as it could possibly be. Anyway, I'm supposed to do updates on the installation of my foot. It feels really good. I don't want to stop itching my foot. It's enjoyable for me to do. I'm gonna go insane if I don't get shows lined up soon, but everyone hates me. And I don't really feel that great about them either if that's the case. Otherwise, I don't mind it. I don't really want to be like, you know, look at the world around you. I mean, it's alright. Thing people don't really talk about very much, I suppose. I don't think anyone likes anything anymore, honestly, except for collecting Stanley Cups. I have to be reminded again about how I used to know what civilization was and was able to not have to pay attention to. But now somehow it's unavoidable, you know? I'm thirsty. That cup I drink out, it was what I'm leaning this camera against or whatever, so try not to make this X-rated or whatever. How's this gonna work? Think it'll work alright? Doing it the way you're supposed to? Anyway, civilization's pretty much screwed at this point, so my own health regimen, as damning as it might be, it's not really damning. I shouldn't say that. You shouldn't misadvertise something if you take it the wrong way, like I do, non-stop. That's why I don't like to record anything other than music for the most part on this planet. It's all doomed though. I didn't remember that till recently about how Clear Channel basically like completely sacked every music station ever. So you think, I usually pour this apple cider first. So now I don't really have a good measuring of the water to apple cider mixture. So this is what I do. I don't let it sit around. I don't sip at it or anything. You're over there. You should be over here. Ah, shit. I'm bathing in apple cider. It might not be horrible. You get your eyeballs in the water. This is what I do. And I better talk about it and say what I need to. Because there'll be some time, fortunate for the world and fortunate for everybody, there'll be some time where I can't talk during this process and after this process. But to me, you take it and you chug it down all at once. So I don't know the ratio. Usually there's a pretty daunting ratio. You should be over here, by the way. That's where I just feel like staring. It doesn't feel right. I don't know if you're into the neuro-linguistic programming studies or whatever, and you can figure out why the fuck I'd want to stare up to the forward right with me rather than the left. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. So just take that and flip it. It's all probably flipped anyway. So usually I just take and chug it. There's a residue taste that comes up afterwards for a while. So you want to drink as much water as you can without actually breathing outwards. It's an interesting experience. I used to have some OCD, like some people try not to step on cracks, or they try to actually purposely step on cracks. Every third step or so with their left foot or whatever, I don't know. Different for everybody. We're all screwed. Those of us that have any sentience anyway. Others just don't sense anything. But that's alright. You know, that's why all the Stanley Cups get sold. So anyway, let's do this. Let's do this. I'm not gonna. It's an exhale. When you breathe it, it comes back up. It's like nothing but apple cider, but that wasn't like a typical mixture, because usually I had to put the water back on and chug. So I didn't get that much of a helping of apple cider. I'm not here to say people should ever do anything I say, even though they should support all the stuff I don't even have out for sale. I want to get a t-shirt business going, do graphic designs for a lot of things and all that stuff, and start some sardonic companies and everything. I still got a lot of designs, and ideas for living concept art. The world would be a lot funner if I had like $1 zillion or so, which I don't think. I think isn't the debt level, isn't that like 16% of the debt level right now? Something. I'm just saying, human beings end up croaking and then their brain isn't around anymore. And I have a lot of fun ideas. I don't want to give too many away because people will probably take them from me and stuff like that. It's just you can work your butt off on stuff, but if you don't already have, good investment intelligence or, nepotism ties and all that sort of stuff, I'd be the kind of wild card to change the world for the better, but it would confuse the shit out of everybody. But people would have their jollies tickled in ways where they'd finally find mass pleasure for once and all that kind of thing. Instead, I'm stuck in a world of cold, gray-souled people. Oh, you remember the Discordian thing? Gray face and everything? That makes sense. A bunch of really annoying people took over and screwed over Church's subgenius and Discordianism and all that, and the flying spaghetti monster and all that kind of thing too, and the Tales of Gwar and all that. I like Gwar as an art project. I think that was really fascinating because, some of us connect in a way where people think we're really dumb all along. And maybe in some senses of, probably social intelligence. I myself am horrible at social intelligence, but it's funner to get dug deeper into having an image laid out where you seem like you're less clever than you really are. And that's what I think the world needs, is more clever humor. But the world doesn't have the attention span for clever humor, or the patience, or the ability to figure out a lot of things that Cleverness needs reference, and reference needs a sort of study of, historical figures and, basically a lot of media things that were prosaic in a kind of way. And, if it's just somebody like myself, if I fall into ranting constantly about how horrible and bad everything is, you turn into eventually old man yelling at the clouds sort of thing. So you have to keep your structure of some form of, hedonism mixed with a style conception or something like that. So a lot of people are afraid of getting called out, of breaking some sort of, social tribe rule for whatever so-called counterculture movement they're invested in, just so they don't feel alone or something like that. So that's pretty interesting to me. Anyway, there's no getting around it though. The economy is completely fucked. And certain things can be criticized so much that a structure, a blueprint of what holds worlds of decency together can be completely obliterated. And if you go to defend yourself about it, you'll be categorized by people that are self-hating people, and they'll categorize you as being some made-up word term, even though you're just trying to continue some heritage of actual decency and search for intelligence increase. When you have a search for intelligence increase, you have to point out your own flaws, your own ineptitude. To say a sentence like that, like I myself can say I have a lot of room for growth, aka I'm an idiot, in some manner. In other manner, if I'm earnest about, healing that in some sort of way, then I could hopefully show a development of the process of getting myself out of that jam. Civilization has information moving faster and faster all the time, and I think part of the system of ego and the system of self-arrogance and digital narcissism and all that kind of thing is something that intelligence growth and information, mixes with that self-issue with that self-issue process or whatever, that problem, and it can't get filtered down through. It's like this mesh filter or whatever, and certain things get stuck and can't get filtered through, and people will not let those things get filtered through. And those things that can't make it through are forms of self-work or, raw truths about reality that people can't bend their ways of self-image or belonging in a social tribe, because they'll get called out by everyone else in that social group. That makes it very comfortable, and it's a very familiar thing, even if it ruins and destroys them in the long run, And I'm not sure what I would do if I gained anything off of that sort of information. It might lead somewhere for me, myself, but it's kind of a secret work that you have to do if you do anything at all. Try to bring yourself forward, because if you admit information to people and it bothers them and it's not convenient, like I used that word earlier in some talk at some point, not that I know if I did anything with the video or not, but I was talking about shattering, conceptions of convenience. And if you're inconvenient in any form of getting a person to break bad habits, that they associate those habits as their identity, they will get extremely unsavory all of a sudden, and their kindness turns into coldness, and they start to snap at you, because you ruined their hallucination. And many people's frameworks of existence are built on tremendous hallucinations, and a lot of the things that are the best for you on this planet aren't really good, especially at the beginning. They're not fun, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not the pleasure of, sugar products and what I call junk media and junk food and all those sorts of things. So imagine, seeing too much in your own life and going through things in your own life and feeling emanations of trauma from those things, but not getting sidewinded to extreme bad habits and trying to deal with the trauma and the energetic impulse of the social collective, and being able to actually filter it where other people put a kind of resistance of filtering that information. Because if you go about those scenarios with still wanting the quest for self-growth, self-truth, whether it's the challenge and the ugliness of looking at your own self-truth, where you have stuff you severely need to work on, or the collective mind that obviously really seriously needs to work on a lot of things, because, seeing the social media culture today, the attention spans, the increase of autism due to this or that or whatever, there's many components of mental scenarios that are very severely alarming. But if you talk about those kind of things and somebody has a child that's diagnosed with this or that, people would rather not talk about it at all, rather than digging deep and possibly finding cures and healings, for certain things, because it upsets them so much that it's a fact they have to deal with to begin with, that you get screamed at for being that kind of person, wanting to think in a new concept or a new approach and all that kind of thing. These are just little sort of springs that lead into, a wider sort of creek that leads into an inlet, then into a river or a lake or something like that. There's little pieces of things that you kind of notice, but don't really have too many forums of being able to associate or communicate those sort of ideas about, because if you question too much on this planet and have any real way that you're going, you have to change the collective hallucination, which are basically mass conveniences that still lead to people having severe illnesses and everything else that we've been repeating throughout history constantly, just sort of changing the different fads that people go through and the different outerwear where people can pretend it's not just a cyclical thing where everyone's just doing, in a way, the same mistake, where a civilization will fall and then it will fall again, and then certain other civilizations won't even be remembered because they tried something in a level that was so bad and they shouldn't have done to a point in the first place, that there are a few examples of it happening throughout history. One of these examples would be a certain aspect where everybody has the equality now to compete against each other, to a point where it's the equality of being in extreme debt and now not being able to have a compatible family system that works together well enough, because rather than finding companions, you're looking at each other as competition and being played every second of the way regarding that, and getting extremely upset when that gets called out, especially those that were fighting for certain examples of words like progress, progressivism, equality, all of these sorts of things. You end up using slogans to become equal competition and owing more debt as individuals, rather than having any family system where there's at least a little bit of some security and some sort of padding to be able to have nourishment. But that's being shooed away extremely vastly and all that sort of stuff, and I'm in the perception of intrigue and curiosity about a lot of it. So when you don't fall too deep and too hard towards a collective group, a niche or whatever, you don't have to defend so much as getting upset when one of your truths is questioned in a way. So I'm not sure how the hell I'd market that, or to put that into some sort of thing where I change that whole presentation into anything anybody takes seriously or anything. It's just, I see information being more so chaos than order a lot of the time, and people are so afraid of that majority percentage of chaos out there that basically is information that hasn't been stamped down and put into this form of absolute convenience. I suppose the truths of, being able to maintain and build your body are an important thing. Basically being able to intelligently rip each other off and convince each other to gain different armies of people that support your idea, while you don't do much at all and get other people to work underneath you. That seems to be every single thing. Well, I guess I'm getting snot everywhere, aren't I? That really backs up this whole point, doesn't it? That's okay, though. I was just having some fun anyway. Apparently, I'm starting to react to how hot the water is in here, so I don't think I'd be talking about any of that. I'll try to go a little bit further with some of those ideas, I guess. Does any of it really matter to me? I better probably decide about it. Because there's culture wars of all kind going on. There's generation wars and this and that. Basically, people being suckered into not finding any solution amongst one another. Sort of just playing a game of hot potato with blame while it all comes crumbling down. Meanwhile, honestly, I just want to write good movies and make movies. I want to write books, make albums, and do sound production. My thing is the arts. So basically, even if I had any points, I'm just somebody that's an art creator or something trying to talk about political stuff. Is that any better or worse than a politician talking about political stuff? Yeah, I think so. Is it any better or worse than an established entertainer talking about political stuff? I think that you have to have your soul beat up so much to become an established entertainer that you're gonna represent something that isn't a person freely and soulfully trying to learn about themselves or to integrate actual knowledge about something, like an actual search for ingenuity. I think ingenuity and I think wisdom and even possibly philosophy, but philosophy is turned into a college campus marshmallow of mold. But I think the idea of ingenuity is very much an important one, and the concept of wisdom is also, but things seem so far gone at this point, it would take kind of almost a miracle for that to be something important to the collective, because it's basically corrupt politicians, as a term used so often, but it's a correct term, and entertainers who aren't even talented at the arts, entertainers who are there as fantastical, they're there for the glitter of it all. They're not even good at the arts of art or drama or painting or music that they do. They're time wasters, they're junk, they're sugar. It's art sugar for your brain, and it makes you stupid. That's what it is, and that's something that influences the public more often than not. The celebrity goes around with a lifestyle of being able to at least afford the appearance that they put up and they keep up as an appearance. People copy celebrities, but they work day jobs. Think about it that way. That's something that I find to be interesting above many things, is that the people that are the day people that are into debt more and more all the time, they look and make themselves look after actors and musicians and all these people that make junk entertainment where they're not even good at. It's just basically distraction. It's sugar. It's junk media. Celebrities afford the lifestyle of keeping that appearance up. The day-to-day person that copies the celebrity still tries to keep up with what the celebrity affords and pours into looking like constantly. So that's just something to think about as far as that, and then comparing it to your worker that does things that keeps houses, electricity, plumbing, architecture, all of the necessities of survival. Their opinions on politics get eaten up by political commentators time and time, so that promises can be broken. And it sounds like a broken record itself, but it's how things go. And those that we look up to do not try to have us gain our own self-knowledge. And those that many people look up to, give them the permission to stay in a mind state of stupefaction, idiocy. If there's anybody that teaches, an aspect of trying to gain ingenuity or wisdom or any of that, so much of those movements get co-opted by even more idiots, and it turns into this sugar, refined junk food sort of way when it comes to things like yoga, spirituality, arts, writing, this and that. And it becomes a word game yet again, and people use words like empowerment and progress and all this and all that. And then all these other these eaters come along, and then they gain some sort of sense of authoritarianism, and then they themselves can become gatekeepers and be able to try to handle some sort of power that they should not have had any access to because they didn't know how to handle that power. So most of the time, a lot of the power in the world is handled by those that are not necessarily equipped to handle it in a correct way. So, and then anybody equipped for or able to manage or inherit that kind of power probably doesn't want it to begin with, also in a way. So it's sort of funny, to think about it in that aspect. That's what I have to say. Anyway, I would love to finish albums out soon and make things. I have to invent a reason for me to keep creating. There's other creators out there that probably share a similar challenge internally, is if you're going to reach for your best, even with having very little equipment to do it with, having the shoddiest equipment, hardly any supporters, getting said no constantly by gatekeepers, nepotists, trust fund kids, nostalgia worshipping trendsters. See, they get the little taste of power. And if I figure out some ways to coerce myself into, having my own fun, my own adventure, my own sense of trying to have fun with both conceptual reality but also self-development in a serious way. Strange enough, I think some groups like, well, let's just not talk groups because there's always further to get into. When I list examples, I kind of have like this more of a watered down version of whatever's in my head at the moment, and then I end up thinking something that's a better example later. But I guess my one question is, why do people not more deeply know who Buckminster Fuller was? That's sort of insane to me. I was just gonna list a controversial art group or something like that, but even those things, there's a little bit more of a serious vantage point. I'd say Antero Ali, though. That person really comes up in my mind a lot since he had passed away, and I really enjoy his serious approach through actually living the arts in which he represented. I think it's very important to live the arts in which you represent, but there's a lot of trauma overcoming and a lot of, it sounds like a bad thing, but suffering. There's a lot of suffering that goes through people that still want to continue art and haven't given up on it. I kind of gave up on all my stuff in a way, to be quite honest about it. And I'm about to try to continue back into it again, but it's almost like, what's the point? Especially when people come along and they can be assholes for no reason or whatever, and it builds up a bit because you deflect those sort of things. But you mix that in with people just being shitheads out in public because their lives are hell too or whatever, but they're managing it in ways that are collectively mentally ill. It seems like there's this collective of mental illness being normalized, and people saying that it's okay that autism is expanding in numbers and everything, and a lot of trouble coming up when anybody talks about solutions to things that bother them to think about. Avoiding things that bother you does not make those things go away. Sometimes you have to get your armpit hair out of there. I might wait a few weeks or so, but people like me, that shit gets too thick and starts to fucking fight their own face. But I can deal with it for a bit more. Anyway, how much longer do you got then as a civilization? Because those aspects of the framework of what hold most of civilization up are not allowed to be defended at this point, so if I'm not deeply on a allegiance of any side that basically turns into a group that gets kind of co-opted and all that sort of thing, and then I used the term Overton window. Is there any more trouble using the term Overton window from the year 1995 up to now? Because the amount of trouble that you can get into for using the word Overton window, just as a phrase or a concept, kind of proves the living actuality of an Overton window. So it's kind of funny, isn't it? It's funny in one of those ways. That is a kind of humor I don't think a lot of people could really put up with. Others of us notice that and have to perpetuate that sort of humor, because if it's not funny, it's pretty depressing. So I just want to write songs, honestly, and make films and write books, though. Do you know how many opportunities? I'm not sure about it completely, but I'm pretty sure I had some ideas quashed before because I'm not meeting the diversification qualification program or whatever, even though I just want to fulfill people's intelligence approach, their curiosity, their willingness to find hopefully witty humor. Not witty in that smarmy atheist way or whatever, not witty and, you know. Another thing is that if you're earnest about certain things that are your own goals, and if you give yourself a list of a compliment about certain things, you know, I could write something that's witty and be a good writer of a certain style or something, but you're not encapturing all of it. It's not going to be that way to everybody. If you're a good writer, you might be a good novelette writer, short story writer, an article writer, and all that kind of stuff. But you can't always practice all these different angles and different, you know, sub-degrees of something you're passionate about. But I think that's a good goal to have, in a way. Like if you work your body or something, doing, you know, one form of an exercise means that you should at least try out a different and see if you want to stick with it. Sticking with something to the point where the development is actually noticed and actualized is something a lot of people don't do also. Like if people try to change their diet, for example, they get to a point of either resorting to a different diet or switching back to their original one before any effect could be taken. So, what's that have to do with anything? I don't know. Do I really want to talk about it? Not anymore, but I must have for that moment, you know. Like I said, I just want to go and write stuff and play music and get booked places and have things work out for me. But I'm in the civilization now where all of a sudden I've become some sort of devil enemy or something like that. That's one warning about this scenario, is that if you accuse people of becoming something when they had a good heart and an open mind for a long time, and you keep accusing them about those sort of things, because you are now in the equality of competing in a suffer market, and you are now in the equality of being my competition rather than my companion. To later go and then constantly accuse somebody like myself of being something means eventually I might become those things I'm accused of. So it's like that for a lot of people similar to myself that don't sit around in bathtubs and talking about it. It just happens to be the place where that subject comes up, however. So don't worry though, it's not going to take root or anything. I'd have to market it and come up with like a way to cut a video up and market it and all that kind of stuff, and then that's how you know, force a countercultural or an organic process of it. There's so many countercultural ideas being studied in multi-story office buildings right now, and then pushed into, you know, media influence, where people might think they're organic ideas, but they're just more little places for people to get bottlenecked and then sucked into another trap of being a good, obedient little, you know, consumer, you know. So, is it true again, like I said something earlier, about the Cold War meeting the Great Depression? I don't know. Could have been better if people just let me do the stuff I wanted to do, like get things printed and make a living off of my creativities. I'll still fight and yearn for that, but, you know, this sort of civilization, as you know, is pretty much donezo, though. So I'm gonna scrub the missile and the eggs and relax a bit.